Welcome back. This is part 7, and I've titled this, We Need to Rethink the Concept of Perfection and Error-Free. Let's start with the word perfection. I really believe we need to replace the word perfection in our vocabulary and switch it with excellence. So what we're really striving for in a performance is not perfection, it's excellence. And I believe that allows us some flexibility, some room for error. And because we know as humans, when we perform, and in any performance, there is no such thing as absolutely flawless, without fault, or something that cannot be made any better in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't exist, just like infinity, right? So what we need instead is excellence. And that means we're doing something really, really well. Think about that for a moment. I think it's the crux of what we're after here in this little video, is to try and understand what in our mind is the impossible versus what is possible and what makes us strive to be really good. Secondly, let's take a look at the concept of error-free or flawless and replace it with error-friendly. Since all performances are going to have some small errors in them of some kind, some little faults of some kind, or things that could be done slightly better, instead of worrying about them and using them as ways to chastise ourselves, let's take a look at them as information. Just something that, hey, I missed a note there. How come? And how do I make it better so that I don't have to make that error the next time around? So error-friendly instead of error-free is a much better way to approach performing. Then I'd like to give you a little quote from a pianist, Robert Levin, that I thought was really quite helpful for me personally. It goes like this. If we put all our emphasis on reproducing something brilliantly and accurately, then risk avoidance becomes paramount. It's admirable, but not interesting. This often leads us to stifled and boring academic performances. Yeah, I think that's true. Most of the time when people are striving to not miss notes, I personally find their performances to be a little bit slow, a little dull, and often rather uninteresting. They don't miss notes, so they think they're doing well, but if you think back to one of the earlier sections, if you believe in the same types of things I believe in, then we may not be making errors in the notes, but we're making errors in the artistry. And so that's really no better, is it? That needs to be taken care of too. So playing in a way that sounds interesting and creative is much better than being safe. And I believe that's what he was trying to say in that quote. What was interesting in one study I found was that performers who focus on being creative, which is improvisers in many cases, they tend to play with fewer errors than those who fixate on being perfect. So if your whole focus is on not missing notes, the tendency is, missing notes. It's like, don't think of a white elephant, that classic study. And then, of course, what do you think of a white elephant? Don't think of making mistakes. And what happens? You make mistakes. Instead, think of being creative and interesting. And I believe that helps us to make fewer mistakes and to be more creative and interesting in our performances. So what we need to do is to retrain ourselves to perform with an artistic mindset and to allow ourselves to think about the beauty of music that we're creating and worry less about missing notes. That's really what we're after here. So we still have to prepare well. No doubt about it. The lack of preparation is not going to lead to an excellent performance. So that devil may care, I'm just going to go out there and wing it type of attitude isn't going to work. It's going to lead to an ineffective and probably error-riddled performance. All right, something that probably is not very beautiful. But hard work in the practice room is still important, still counts, but we just need to change our mindset about how we approach performing. So the hard work in the practice room, I believe, should be looked at maybe slightly differently, and I think a lot of people miss something here. So when we're working in the practice room, we need to learn the art of performance there. A lot of times we focus on practicing, which is basically problem solving. All right, we're fixing errors, we're learning fingerings, and so on. So if we think about it as 3 different broad categories of practicing, I think it will help. The first part is the preparation part. That's where the research is done. You're working, you put your fingerings in, you're memorizing, you're working through the piece. The second part is performing, and I call it rehearsal. And so that means I've learned the piece and I can play it all the way through. And now I'm focusing on run-throughs from beginning to end, and I'm trying to get through without making a lot of errors. I'm trying to develop the artistry of the piece and so on. And then once I get to the point where I can do that effectively, then there's the performance stage. And the performance stage can be done either in front of an audience or at home. You can do this in front of an iPhone or whatever, or some kind of recording device to listen to yourself and to assess yourself. So if you record yourself on a regular basis and you listen back, you can pretty quickly become a good judge of your own playing, and you can start to detect where the errors are, and you can find better ways to fix them. I found most students, and myself included, tend to not record enough and listen back and try to correct problems. But if you do this regularly, I think you'll find that you can become a much more excellent performer. So lastly, performing beautifully means expressing the art of the composition, its inner beauty, its excellence. And so what we need to focus on is the inner beauty of a piece, and making it as artistic and interesting as possible when we perform. Yes, we have to be prepared and go through all those steps first, but at the end of the day, it's about making something really beautiful and interesting and artistic. And if we focus on those things, I believe it will make us much more adept as players. So to wrap this whole thing up, I believe the focus in this lecture was about the concept of perfection and rethinking what perfection really means, and exchanging that with human excellence, the word excellent instead of perfect, in our vocabulary. And I think that will take us an awful long way. So I wrote a little thing at the very bottom that maybe is helpful for us. But to me, art is concerned with human expression much more than it is human perfection. And I drew that, of course, from Yo-Yo Ma. Art is the unique way we apply the myriad ideas and techniques we gain from our craft. Craft is the knowledge and skills we gain from a systematic, even scientific application of our practice. And practice is the method of exploration, trial and error, working out, learning the inner workings of music, our instruments, our bodies, and our minds. So I hope that this little lecture was useful for you and interesting, and I hope that you're going to rethink performing and performing without error, and take a more joy-filled approach to the art of performing, and really sharing music with others, because it's a most wonderful way to express ourselves as humans. And there's no perfect way to do it. There is unique and individual ways and excellent ways to do it. And that's what I think we need to strive for in our performances. So with that, I will sign off and see you the next time around. Cheers.